Hi guys, okay, so we're back now on the second part of this General Grievous artwork. And as I said, the whole purpose of this is to show you how to use markers as kind of like your base layer, and then come back in with color pencils and refine it down with the color pencils. Now, one of the hardest things about doing this is the marker part. Whenever you're doing the marker part, there are going to be times when it looks messy and it doesn't look clean or anything like that, because you might go over a line a little bit, or the marker might bleed over a line slightly, one of the areas that you may not want it to go into. But when you come back in with your pencils, you can refine all of that down and sharpen those lines up where it needs to be sharpened up, or if there is a gradient that you're working with on the markers, and for whatever reason it's just not working out right, you can still come back in with pencil later on and lightly just refine that gradient to where you just can't see it, where you can't see like where the colors mix. And that's it's for me personally, this is one of the beauties of using alcohol marker with color pencils. The pencils give you this great detail, whereas the markers give you this very fast, efficient way of getting filling in larger areas. Whereas if you were to, Whereas if you were to do it with colored pencil, and you could, there's nothing stopping you, it's going to take obviously a lot longer. And so if somebody were to say to me, what are the benefits of doing artwork in this way, in other words, using marker and then coming back in with colored pencil, I would just simply say it's really down to speed. It speeds up the process quite significantly. And especially if you've got a really good set of markers and you've got really good colors in your range, you're going to be able to do anything you want. And like I said in the first part, just because this is, I know for a lot of you here on Patreon, this may not be your genre, doing fan art or doing this type of piece may not be your thing. However, everything I'm showing you here on this video is transferable into anything that you want to do. Later on in January, I'm going to be doing a marker and color pencil piece, but I'm going to be doing it on a botanical piece. So I'm going to show you that these skills are transferable. You can use them on anything you want, so long as you've got the right colors with your markers and stuff like that. There's nothing stopping you from doing landscape or animals or even portraits, although I would think that doing a portrait would be a little bit tricky with markers, but it can be done, and it has been done. I've seen lots of artists doing it. So as you can see here, we're working on the front of this face, and there's kind of like a grill at the front, as I explained in part 1, just so that you understand the subject that we're drawing. This thing is a character from Star Wars, and it is it's part organic and part machine. So it's like, as you can see there by the eyes, there's skin and sinew and tissue and stuff like that. And then the face covering is like a armor. So what we're trying to accomplish here is, where the grill part is at the front, you can see the side part here is darker. Now if you look at the reference image, you can see on the reference image that there is a background here. There's also a lightsaber. He's holding a lightsaber. So there's a lot of greens and there's a lot of yellows that are going to be added into these warm greys. A lot of the time I've used, like I say, these warmer greys, warm grey tones for the head, and then come back over the top of them with like a very, very pale green like a grey-green marker. Now, I'm fortunate enough in that I have a lot of Copic markers. However, if you look over some of my reviews, you will see that there are an outstanding amount of companies now that are producing really high-end, good quality markers at reasonable prices. Copic are very, very expensive. But there are lots of fantastic alternatives out there, like Artex, Art and Fly, Ohuhu, Spectrum Noir have their they have their Illustrator marker and their graphic marker as well, and there's lots of other ones as well that Winsor Newton, they also have brush markers. And if you want to know more about the difference between a brush marker and a bullet nib and things like that, I do have a video up on the Art Gear Guide where I kind of explain the difference between the nibs and how they appear. When you're doing things like this, a brush nib, in my opinion, is much more beneficial, although a lot of artists can work just as well using the harder chisel nib. The reason why I say the brush nib is because the brush nib allows you to create like a feathering technique. Like, so when you are using your marker, you kind of like apply pressure, and as you're coming towards the end, or as you're coming towards a part where you want a gradient, you kind of like, you flick the marker off the paper, so you're creating like a feathering effect, and that feathering effect allows you to blend the markers in easily. Again, I'll have a link to a video where you can see how to blend markers if this is your first time using markers. So you can see here, I'm coming in now with the pencil and I'm just darkening up this little bit. There's also bits on this character here, on the face of him, where he's battle scarred. He's got lots of chips and nicks and things like that. So once I laid down the initial color, you can see I've gone back in with like a darker grey to create these slice marks and nicks and what have you down the side here of this grill, just to make sure that it looks three-dimensional, that it looks like it's off at a right angle. Again, you can see here I'm in with the pencils, just darkening things down and making sure that my lines where they're supposed to be lines, they are sharp. Okay, so you can see here now I'm back on with the markers, finishing off this this other part of the head, and you can see here I'm doing this this like feathering technique where there's obviously a highlight here on the side of the head. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create this flicking technique. I'm coming in here now with a darker marker because the head is darker at the top, and now I'm coming in with slightly lighter one to help blend the colors together. You can see that it's all starting to blend together there quite nicely. So you can see here now, I'm coming in with these greens, these really kind of like grey greens, these light greens. And like I said, this is, it's okay to do that. So as you can see, I put down the warm greys. And then I'm coming back in with these greens. And these greens will just give the hint that, because the actual character isn't green himself. He's like this warm grey colour. But because of the light that's round the side of him, the lightsabers and things like that, that's where the colour is coming from. And the good thing about markers is, providing you're not too dark, providing you're not using like a black marker, when you come in with a lighter colour on top, it will lie on top and it will give you the appearance that you're looking for. So you can see here now, I'm coming in here with the darker pencil, just creating these nicks and like battle scars, that type of thing. And this is where the pencils come in really handy. So in some of the cases here, some of the lines are going to be really, really black, and it's, rather than doing this with a pencil, a fine liner marker is going to be absolutely fine. Now this is a really super dark green that I'm using. It almost looks black. You can just about see the green here in this, but again, this is, down to the reflection. And as I said in part one, I don't normally do backgrounds because I'm not very good at them, but for this piece here, I did do the background, and I think without the background, the piece wouldn't have made sense. But with the background in, you can see why the character is the colours that he is. again, coming in with these greens here, darkening down this side piece. And again, don't forget, if you're following along with this and you're following along and you're trying to do this piece, as I always say, you're going to get you will get this stage when you're doing this piece and any other piece for that matter, where you're going to think it's not looking right, or it's not good, or whatever. Try to put that voice to the back of your head and try to just keep pushing through. There's obviously, whenever you get to that point, you've got to kind of like weigh up the situation that you're in. If you really, really feel that the piece that you're working on it's not going right, and there's no way that you can salvage whatever it is that you feel is wrong, then depending on the size of the piece, if it's a really big piece, then yeah, okay, stop it and maybe start over again, because the last thing you want to do is waste a lot of ink or pencil on something that you know from an early stage is not right. But it is important to also try to remember that every artist, when they're doing a piece, there's always that real messy stage, and it's not until a lot of the time when you get to almost the end of the piece, when you start pulling it all together, you start refining it and things like that it starts coming to, to look like the piece that you want it to be. So it's very important you remember that and try to stop that voice in the back of your head from taking over. So this piece here that we're working on has, if you look at your reference image here, it has like lines coming down from it. Almost looks like it's a rigid piece, a wrinkly piece that has got grooves in it or what have you. So again, if you look at this side piece, down at the bottom it's darker, and then it works its way up into the top, where I'm working now, where my hand is now, into a much, much lighter piece. And that's why I had those aqua greens out, because they help to create that brightness at the top of the character's head. For whatever reason, there's some, if you look at the reference image right behind him, there's a bright light coming from behind him, whether it's a ship or something like that, I don't know. But that's what's causing that blue-green light to come from behind him. And then underneath him, he has this kind of like greeny yellow lightsaber, and that's what's causing the greens and the yellows on his face. Now for this character, obviously a lot of what we're doing here is we're working on metallics. We're working on trying to portray certain parts of this are going to have like are made out of metal, so they're going to have that shine, as well as the different as well as the object taking on the colour from whatever light is reflecting around it. Here I'm just coming in with a pencil and I'm just refining these lines, and darkening up little bits where it needs to be darkened up. Again, always looking at your reference image. Look at the reference image and just follow the shapes that you see and the gradients that you see. Another good point, I've mentioned it in the first part and I'll mention it again. When you come to do any piece that you're drawing, a really good idea is to look at it, study the reference image, and if there's a part of that image that you think you're going to have a problem creating, do that on a separate piece of paper. And then when you come to that part on your original piece, you're not going to be sat there stuck trying different things, trying different techniques on the actual piece, creating a mess. Try it on a scrap piece of paper before you actually start the image, and that will help you tremendously, I promise you. Because on this particular part, if you look at the reference image on the top right hand corner ish, just down a little bit, you can see like a lot of what look like copper wires, and they look like they're coiled or something like that. I thought I was going to have a big problem up around that area, and I thought maybe, it might, because there was a lot of detail there, it might be a good idea just to cover them to make it look like there's metal work or something up there. And then I thought, no, I need to try and work this out. And so I did, and I worked out how to do it, and I'll explain it to you when we get to this piece here. You can see here now I'm working on these darker grooves, these lines. It looks like it's part of a cog system or something to help move his head, or these side fins on the side of his head. So we're working on that piece now. See here, I'm working on this top part now, working with that flicking motion that I was telling you about earlier on, and that just helps me work out my gradients. That helps me get the gradients right. I will get this in frame in a second, but one of the reasons why you do that flicking motion, or I do it in any case, it's not the only way to do it, is when you're going, especially when you're going from dark into a lighter color, and you need those two colors to blend together seamlessly. When you do that flicking motion, it's almost like it's creating like a light layer for you to come back in with the next light layer, the next color, and it's not going to be too powerful. So if I'm coming in with like a dark gray, and I need to go into a lighter gray, if I just go to a certain point with that marker, when I try to blend with the lighter color, it's not gonna work, because the darker color will be too overpowering. But if you use that flicking motion with the markers, as you're lifting off the page, you will see that it gives you a lighter coverage, and it's almost like when you're using a felt tip pen and it's starting to run out, it gives you that kind of look, and that's what you're after. I know I actually realized here that it was out of focus. So you can see here, I did a lot of the gradient there in warm grey, and now I'm coming in with these greens. Again, if you look at your reference image, there's kind of like a dark line dividing this part from the next part down. So just coming in now with that. And as always, as I always say, you get keeping your values, like your darks dark and your lights light, are really important. Whenever you're doing your blending from one color to the next, alcohol marker dries quite fast. You can see on certain occasions when I'm working here, you'll see it kind of like it looks wet and then it just kind of like evaporates in front of your eyes. You can see the way the light glints on it. That's really all the time that you have to mix with. So a good tip or technique really that I use is the two colors that I'm going to be blending together, I'll have the lids off them, because even the time to take a lid off can mess up that blend. So if you're going from, say, like warm grey 8 to warm grey 6 from the Copic range, for example, have the lids off the warm grey 8 and the warm grey 6, blend them together, and then put your lid on your warm grey 8, and if you've got to go lighter and you're going to warm grey 4 next, get your 4 off and your 6 ready and blend out like that. So it just means that you've got that slight extra second to mess about with the inks. Unfortunately, it's not like watercolor. It's not like when you work with watercolor, you can, if you're doing wet on wet, you've got a fair amount of time to work with the watercolor, although you are still timed. But with alcohol markers, depending on the paper that you're using, if you're using something like a cardstock, which has a film on top of it, the ink will stay wet longer. Whereas if you're using something like a mixed media paper here, or say like Strathmore 500 series Bristol plate, which is the paper I often use when I'm doing big pieces, that paper tends to absorb the marker a little bit faster than it would do on cardstock. So you just have to be mindful of that. And like I say, I'll have a link down below to my video showing you how to blend markers. But if you are new to markers, you want to give them a go, again, do this blending technique. Get 3 colors. Get a dark red, mid red, and a light red, or whatever, and practice blending them. Practice getting like drawing out a few shapes, like a square or rectangle or something like that, and use the colors that you want to practice your blends with. Even trying to create a cylinder, like do a rectangle but turn it into a cylinder with a few different colors, a few different markers, by putting down a light color and then starting from darker colors, working from the edges into the center with that light strip along the center. Practice doing things like that, and it'll certainly help you whenever it comes to doing your actual pieces. So now you can see I'm working on the background here, and sorry, hang on a second. So now you can see I'm working on the background here, and it's like this aqua green. Now, for this part here, there isn't much of a gradient. It gets a little bit darker around the outsides. So the light, you need to be kind of like lighter right round the character, and then as you're fading out to the edges of the piece, you need to start getting darker. So you can see here now a little bit's getting darker. The good thing about this is it's kind of like a space background, so you don't have to be really super regimented about it. For this background, I used a lot of really dark blue greens. So you can see here now I'm working on this lightsaber. Now this lightsaber, I found this really difficult to get it right. So you can see there, I've left kind of like the center of the lightsaber white, and I've done like a pale yellow down the outside. But now I've come in with like this really, really, really pale yellow. It's almost like a cream color because the center of the lightsaber almost looks white. And then it has this kind of like fluorescent yellow down the outside. And then you can see there on the reference image, it's got these kind of almost like fluorescent green bits sparking off the lightsaber. Now at the time, if I had say like a Posca pen that had that color, that fluorescent green, I would have used that for those bits that come off the lightsaber, but at the time I didn't have it. See here, I'm just creating these little lines, kind of like negative painting here, so that I can come in with a pencil, like a light green or a light yellow pencil to give me those sharp green spark lines that are coming off them. Like I say, if I had had like a fluorescent green Posca pen or perhaps even some gouache or something like that, I would have used that. I'd have just coloured in the whole thing black and then just come back in over the top of it with some gouache or a Posca pen, but I didn't have it at the time, so I had to do it this way. This is where using the markers comes in really handy. If you were to try to do this background with just colored pencil, it would take you an awful long time, especially because in order to get the really dark blacks or whatever colors that you're getting, you need to do light layers, and the first couple of layers you can be quite haphazard, but once you get into the last 2 or 3 final layers, that's when you've got to start, doing your small circles and things like that. So it's at times like this when using the markers really comes in handy. So you can see here coming in with this really pale yellow, just to help me kind of create that illusion that the center part of the lightsaber is brighter than the outsides. Also filling in these little like electricity parts that are coming off the lightsaber. So I was just going in there with the white pencil just to see if I was going to be able to create those like stars in the background, those to give the illusion that this is space behind him. Again, always looking at the reference image, always looking at what shapes you can see, what bits need to be highlighted, what bits need to be dark, that type of thing. Just darkening up some of these little ridges here, just using the pencil again, you know, for the detail part. For this section, you know, we used the marker for the base color, and with all these little lines that are coming down and things like that, they're always best done using the pencils or a fine liner, depending. All these little battle scar bits that need to go in here, all these little blemishes on his armor and things like that. These are all the things that are going to give you that illusion of realism, that it's going to, you know, look exactly like the reference image. Obviously, you don't have to have these little blemishes exactly the way they are in the reference image. You can, you know, look at the biggest ones, the biggest scratches, things like that. Get them in the right place, and then the other smaller ones around there, you know, they don't have to be exact. So you can see here now, again, coming in with the pencils for these highlight bits just on the top part of the armor from this character. And again, for the background here, just using the pencil just to kind of smooth over any brush marks from the markers. Markers are by no means like a perfect medium. They're not easy to use or anything like that, especially brush markers. There is a technique in using them. Sometimes they can leave streak marks, not always, but sometimes they can. But this is the beauty of combining the marker with color pencil. The color pencil can come in and can smooth out all those little blemishes that the marker might leave. Anyway, guys, this is the end of part 2. This is a 4-part drawing, so we'll be coming in part 3 and 4. We're going to be getting into the really intricate sections of this character, so look forward to that, and I will see you all again very soon in the next section, part 3. So this is it for part 2. Thanks very much. I hope you are enjoying this course, or follow along, whatever you want to call it, and I shall see you all soon. Bye.